Folks, welcome to the Talking Crit podcast. We're back to having guests, not just an extra day during the week to bring in a guest, but actual, real, live, physical guests. With me though, as usual, on Wednesday nights is my once a week work spouse, Bad Mike Battalato. Uh, yeah, Mike, I'm glad you can clap for yourself.
Well, I'm like
I'll give you a
Hasbro.
clap too.
I'm awarding my own reward, my own award there. I just awarded myself best
There you-
co-host of the year. I'm
Oh,
best,
there you
did you
go.
know that I won that award, best co-host of the year. I won that
You
recently.
can probably print your own these days.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, I'm gonna do that. Yeah.
Below Mike, just because that's how it all wound up, is Jeff Jones. If you follow this channel, you probably know Jeff from things such as layout on the two Torchlight issues, and the as soon as WotC figures out what's happening with the original OGL and the SRD 3.1, 3.5, the forthcoming Swords and Wizardry. No, sorry, we dropped that.
Ooh.
Continual Life.
Yeah, exactly. Beep.
Beep, 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 beep. If you want Swords and Wizardry, it was just kickstarted by Matt Finch.
Yes.
You can check that one out. And underneath me is Adam Kovak. Kovak with the C, not with the K, as you saw us advertising. Which, by the way, Adam, just so you know, I copy and pasted from Jeff's PM to me.
Wow.
So I know I could fall on the sword for Jeff, but I fuck up enough on my own. I don't need to take that small cut nick from Jeff. So
Well, Adam's not surprised.
that's okay. Yeah, there you go. I mean,
All right.
everybody gets my real last name wrong. It's pronounced Stina. Even I, going to the doctor's appointment, say Stein because I figured they'll look at it and go Stein. If I say Stina, they'll never find it right in front of them. So believe me, I know what it's like when people get your name wrong. So
Did you not mention this on? I mean, purposely you didn't say.
well,
anything
no, I was
about
going to let you mention that because
Okay.
they're both involved.
Okay, Well, I have the hot little brand new copy in my hand of this and that 1 and 2. So I've been perusing it all week and I'm extremely impressed. So I just didn't know if you were jealous. I thought you might have been jealous or something, Eric, and you just didn't want to, because it's taking you so long to get, continual light out.
Yeah.
And this guy's these guys are pumping these out. I mean, like crazy. Yeah.
All right. That's why you're my once a week work spouse because I don't think I can handle twice a week with you, Mike. It wouldn't be pleasant.
You handle. Okay, look, you get those jokers on Friday night, and if you can handle Joe the lawyer, you can handle me. Good Lord. That guy, Joe and Rob and Glenn sometimes. Come on, man.
Well, if you can learn how to shut Rob Conley up, then you're doing pretty well. And I think I have learned how to do it. What? No, that's the inside joke in our group. Usually we need Tim Shorts on to manage Rob. If you have Tim on,
Yes.
then Rob will be under control.
Yeah.
But otherwise, you break out your bingo card and start scratching things off like
when will we mention LARPs?
LARPs.
Yes.
City State. You just start. It's almost a Rob Conley bingo card, even though it's supposed to be for the whole session, the whole group of us. But in any case, holy crap, they're yapping away. I digress. So, Jeff, tell us what's going on with the two of you. What are you guys working on?
Well, Scoundrels of Brixton. So, yes.
All right, question: who did the cover art? Because that's sort of standing out to me.
So the guy goes by the moniker That O'Hara. So he is a German artist who does video game conceptual art for video games.
I can see that. Okay.
Yeah. So what happened was I thought, what's the most money I possibly could spend? I thought Zach Goins one time said, if you were to expect your Kickstarter to be $30,000 and you spent you expect to be a $30,000 Kickstarter, would it be a $30,000 Kickstarter? Well, I didn't have that much gumption, but I thought, what's the most I really spent on a cover? And I put it out there, and after a little haggling, he did it and he delivered.
Okay, that's pretty impressive.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, yeah, it is. It is. He did an outstanding job. And also, he's I also interviewed him on the podcast. He's a great guy. And always looking for commissions. So,
okay. If you can give me like his Twitter or something like that after this, I'll put it in the show notes.
I can do that.
All right, sounds good.
Yeah. So Scowls of Brixton, we have it tagged as Cephas Engine, which means it works really nice with Traveler.
Okay.
So by saying works really nice, it's based off of the Cephas Engine. SRD is really a derivative of the Traveler SRD.
Yes, the Mongoose Traveler 1 or 2. I think it was 1. I try to remember. Yes. I remember during the OGL fiasco that we're going to take our ball and everybody else's balls and take them home with us. That the Cephas engine, which doesn't use the SRD but uses the OGL, was briefly in very choppy waters, not knowing where it was going to go. Glad to see that.
Yeah, because it used the Wizard of the Coast, and I think my understanding was that Mongoose is very protective, and many were afraid that this would be an opportunity for Mongoose to claw back some stuff.
Well, and Mongoose did that initially with when they had the RuneQuest license. They opened it up to the OGL, which then became Legend when they lost the RuneQuest license, and it got relicensed out. And that's I couldn't even follow that, but I do remember that their Legend license was used for derivatives, and allowed people to play basically in Chaosium's basic role playing world of rule sets without having to buy the original. I got a derivative or two, OpenQuest. I loved it. I love Cephas because it takes the Traveler rules that you're comfortable with and removes it from control of the gaming oligarchy. It really opens it up, and that's I think what scared Woods of the Coast and scared Mongoose once they realized what they did. I think it scares a lot of companies to lose that much control over your intellectual property, or whatever they want to call it.
Yeah, and I'm also hoping that, through this all, there's also, maybe Adam's maybe a little more familiar than I am, but I think that Mongoose has made some overtures that maybe they will be doing a more open license in the future for this. Have you heard anything regarding that, Adam?
Not specifically, but just what was it? May Day, the big Traveler holiday that they had this week. Some of the creators like John Watts and whatnot were on discussing just how all this is going to shake out, and I get the sense, I don't know all the details, and I'm probably not smart enough to understand them all either, but it sounds like the initial panic has subsided considerably. That's the best way I can describe it as far as from the creator standpoint. So I guess we'll have to see, and I've got an idea that, or just a general feeling that, small creators like RPG Ramblings, like what you do, Jeff, and others are going to come through this fire. Okay. I don't think anyone's going to go out of business. I don't think anyone's going to have, a significant chunk of their profits, siphoned off by, as you said, the corporate oligarchy of big RPGs.
Yeah.
Let's hope. Fingers crossed, right?
Well, the OGL they're going to nullify that.
Oh yeah, and I'm glad to hear you say that, Jeff, because when I say that elsewhere, people are like, well, no, you have the OGL. They wouldn't give us the Creative Commons if they were going to leave the OGL in place. The Open Game License is turned D&D and other games viral. The Creative Commons allows you to share, but you got to turn on that viral aspect specifically. And I think they don't want derivative products becoming viral because it
well, I do think there is good and bad mixing of what they're trying to do, but I think in a lot of ways doing with the Creative Commons probably gives what most people really want, but there are some other effects that this has that they don't realize. And they've never stated that they weren't going to nullify that. So
right. I think that Kyle said something to the effect of, I don't know what you're worried about. We gave you the Creative Commons, which is telling me that there's a lot to be worried about if you value the OGL. Because
I have a standing bet with Mark Greenberg, our buddy Mark, that for a bottle of whiskey, that I say the OGL will be nullified by the end of 2024. He says it will not happen. So I feel good about my bet. Bottle of whiskey. Although there is a possibility they could just, by just threatening to nullify it, they don't have to actually nullify it. Because at this point, every system out there is switching. I mean, everybody's switching out of the OGL. So pretty soon there really won't be a point in probably having to nullify it because nobody will be publishing under it.
Well, I really don't think, my belief is that this was done over small publishers. I don't think that was the reason why they're doing it. There's another reason they're doing it, but we're just not considered as being like, they never considered us, and we're not that important. We're that small. We're just in the wake of this other decision.
Yeah, you were inconsequential. You were ants that were being inadvertently burned by the kid playing with the magnifying glass.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I was trying to start a fire with these leaves to burn down the shed, but instead I happened to be burning up these inconsequential ants that are screaming out in pain because I just ruined their lives. But it wasn't my plan. But whatever, they're ants, and that's really. I do think that Wizards of the Coast was, even with the OGL, it wasn't so much snatching money from large publishers aside, maybe from Paizo and those, but they wanted that money from YouTube videos. It's like, oh, Matt Mercer, yeah, we want your money, right? And they wanted to push these people. It's like into like how did the OGL cover this and that before? Oh well, no, they needed specialized stuff. It was a money grab, certainly, but it wasn't aimed at the low end. Sorry, I'm not trying to insult anybody by saying low end, but but the lower tier, the third tier publishers, the smaller companies, and most of them put out really great work, but they are not the threat to WotC. And also, I think WotC wanted to. I believe this for they've said enough. The morality issue of, oh my God, we're going to be relaunching D&D, and somebody could put out a book of erotic whatever and have it be OGL, and then it can assume that we endorsed it. And I think somewhere on a corporate level that became the overwhelming.
But that's bullshit, right? I mean, that's a bullshit idea, because we've had 30 years or 20 years of the OGL, and the worst that's come out of it has been probably the book of erotic fantasy or whatever that thing was that came out from a third-party publisher that nobody cared about because it didn't sell. I mean, it sold a couple of copies, and it was look at this, and it just it's just not that big a market. There's not that big a market that somebody's going to spend their time creating, WotC porn or 5e porn that they need to worry about. That was just a fig leaf they wore over their, their nakedness.
It gave them the excuse to put out the Book of Vile Darkness, which came pre-wrap, so you couldn't look at it on the shelf because it was so offensive. So, I mean, they played right into it anyway. And it gave them the excuse to revoke the D20 license. They figured we could revoke the D20 license. Why can't we revoke the OGL? They released the thing in time.
You made a good point, man. Just a few minutes ago about like the residual stuff, man. And I don't think a lot of. I'm an author by trade, and I wonder if a lot of role playing game creatives, consider details like subsidiary rights, like residual profits. And I'll use an example. When I was negotiating the sale of my first novel, right? I'm talking with my agent, and he's talking about he's talking about subsidiary rights, and I'm like, why do I even need to care about this? And he's like, no, that's everything. This is how Disney, this is how Star Wars makes their money. It's not the movies, it's the freaking flashlight. Okay, it's the action figure, it's the little lunch boxes, and all the spin-off products that go with it. So now, as you see D&D, for example, moving into the mainstream, you're getting all these little. You think of it like sparks coming out of a campfire almost, and every little spark is $1, and when you're dealing with a massive corporation like say Hasbro, a parent corporation, the umbrella, all right, these guys have armies of attorneys who get paid to specifically scrape up every one of these nickels. And yeah, I mean, you talk about that they probably didn't intend for, smaller independent RPG publishers or creators to get, hit by this blowback. I mean, I hate to use the word collateral damage because it's been, but that's exactly what it was.
It is. Yeah.
It's unintended. I think it was I want to believe that it's unintended. But yeah, there's all these little tiny details that we didn't see coming. You mentioned the YouTubers, okay, boosting the popularity of said game. Nobody saw that. What, 40 years ago when I started playing D&D?
10 years ago.
Yeah,
come on.
Nobody saw that coming. I remember I think it was during the pandemic. We were all locked down, and I'm on YouTube watching people play Dungeons and Dragons and Traveler and whatnot, and I'm like, I would have never freaking thought of this, ever. You've got people in costume, and and this is it just ballooned, and and it's crazy.
I mean, like, people talk about whether the current D&D movie is successful or not, and to some level that's irrelevant. If it's if it makes its profits in the movie theaters or not, if it breaks even, it's probably going to be hugely successful based upon sales of the tchotchkes and the other third-party material. I mean, we already know like the popcorn holder is going to be going for a couple of $100 on eBay come this time next year, or the limited edition poster where they scraped off Jeff Easley's name is going to be going. I mean, this stuff is going to be collectible, but we're not even talking about stuff that's going to be hitting the store. When you go to a Target or Walmart, and you're looking at, look, the D&D figures, they're going to be up there right next to the Legos and right next to, G.I. Joe probably dates me. It's probably not even out there anymore. But they want to be the next big aspect, and that's where they're going to make their money. And that's where Hasbro / WotC is really looking at their profit line. I would assume it's less growing our hobby. Our hobby is there, but if they can sell those collectible D&D miniatures, which yes, I have. I'm going to do a mic here for a second.
Sell out.
The box here with the minis, which really doesn't show up with my fucking green screen now.
No, it looks terrible. It looks awful.
Yeah, but I mean, honestly, that's where they're hoping to be making their profit. Is that if the movie drives sales for their licensed material, it's a win-win for WotC. If the movie broke even, we're going to definitely see a D&D 2, dishonor amongst, I don't know, rogues. It can't be thieves anymore.
Bard's Gone Wild or something. Yeah.
Oh.
I should have been. I wanted to be in marketing. I just never.
I think Tiefling's Gone Wild is probably more appropriate.
But like from where I'm sitting, as someone creating something, right? Like say I'm writing for, let's just stay on the D&D thing. Say you create a D&D supplement, and it's like a book of magic weapons, right?
Right.
And in there's a sword that, the Death Bringer or something. And, small independent, gamers and referees GMs, DMs, they buy this supplement and they start incorporating this sword, this death dealer, death bringer into their games, and it becomes a big hit, and everybody wants to use it, and then all of a sudden somebody on YouTube's using it, and it just starts spinning off, right? And everyone's putting this sword into their games, right? Everywhere, from the small table to the YouTube games and whatnot. And, and you have to worry, as the person who created this, is big gaming going to swoop in and want a piece of that action? Because maybe they realize, hey, we can monetize this. Mm-hmm. We can take this Deathbringer sword and we can put it in Dungeons and Dragons Part 2. And now we're talking business. Now we're talking Halloween costumes, baby. Right? You see what I'm saying? And all this, originated from somebody like any of us sitting right here.
Well, Adam, is it the whole story of comic book history? Is that guys like Jack Kirby and Steve Ditko are creating these characters, and here that when they got old, they're getting none of it because they're like, oh, you sold the rights to that to Marvel, and so you're not getting any of the sweet Spider-Man money or Fantastic Four money. It's all going to the company.
Yeah, I mean it's similar, man. I can kind of understand it in a different light because, like with comic books, with like Ditko and those guys, like they're working in the shop.
Right.
I mean, they're employees of the comic book company. Guys like Jeff and I we're two guys in our back room. Mm-hmm. I'm sitting here making today, I'm taking care of my sick kid and grocery shopping, and I'm creating a new robot and making stats for this, And if that robot becomes, I made a robot today. It's the next issue. We'll talk, Jeff. Sorry, just to let you know, there's a killer receptionist droid in the doctor's office in the next issue. But you have to wonder, like what's going to happen? I mean, are you going to get cut out of the money? Are you going to get sued? Are you going to get a cease and desist? I mean, you don't know. As somebody, just. From my scale on the creative side of it, that's what kind of gives the clouds of unease swirling over your house amidst all this OGL talk and nullification and words that I can't even pronounce and whatnot. Well,
it's in some IP owners are very, especially more the independents, are very open and generous about the use of things, and other companies aren't. So, people like Mongoose are very close about guarding, Traveler. So, how do I market this? Do I say it's Traveler? I don't know. I could get myself into trouble. You know what I mean? So it's sometimes
compatible with, for use with. I mean, and in theory, you can legally say for use with Traveler.
Yeah, and that was a debate we had when we launched this Kickstarter for Scoundrels of Brixton of can we say in the project description this would be great for Traveler. And people have given us feedback saying, hey, you'd be able to get more backers and pledges if you just said outright for use, great fit for Traveler. And I know Jeff and I were, it's more Jeff's problem than mine, but it's a valid question that we toyed with. So when we've just kind of said this is Cepheus engine compatible, and pretty much everybody in the Traveler community knows what that means. Everybody in Cepheus engine world knows. Oh, okay. But like in say like posts on Twitter, trying to spread the word about Scoundrels. I've just given up and said, hey, this is great for your Traveler campaign. And here's why, here's A, B, and C different reasons. And hopefully Jeff gets sued and not me. But the Traveler people are pretty good about that, both in like Far Future Enterprises side of it and Mongoose. I mean, really the super hands-off thing that they don't want anybody delving into without permission is fiction, is a novelization. That is an IP. That's like going in there cold is like crossing Mordor. I mean, one does not simply walk into, and that's true with any IP as far as fiction. They're going to really guard that, especially if you try to monetize it.
Well, I think a lot of this, like Eric was saying earlier, the critical role part in this drama is that they were able to take the IP and basically make a ton of money on it, money that in ways that WotC wasn't making money on it. And when it came as absolutely no surprise to me when they've announced that, we're going to have our own game called Daggerheart here because they don't need D&D anymore. D&D needs them. And they really don't need D&D. And they've realized that, if we want to write books and we want to have our own cartoon and we do this and that, we need to have our own world, our own powers, our own rules and everything. And, thanks for the help, WotC, but, we don't need you anymore.
Yeah, and that's what's key. Early on, when you have a sticker that says D&D or a sticker that says Traveler, it immediately tells people what this is about. But Critical Role, they've gotten to the point where they got cartoons on Amazon that says nothing about D&D. So they've already have a huge amount of brand recognition.
Well, you look at The Expanse. Take The Expanse novels and The Expanse role-playing game. I mean, these two guys, the germ of this, it was all the novels basically were the seeds that planted the role-playing game, for this little universe, which is highly influenced, or it seems influenced by games like Traveler.
But and wasn't The Expanse itself based upon somebody's role-playing campaign?
Yeah, exactly. And I don't think anyone said the name of the role-playing game.
Smart. They don't want to say.
Right. Well, this is what I'm getting at. I mean, you talk about Firefly and the guy who did that. He said it now. It's out there that we were playing Traveler in college, and it was so cool. And John Watts over at Cephas, will tell a story about, how he's playing his homebrew Cephas campaign or Traveler stuff, and then his friends are saying, "Hey, you gotta check out this show, man. The latest episode of Firefly is exactly like last week's game that you ran." And he's like, "What?" And he's like, for a while, the guys in the gaming group thought there was a spy. Thought somebody was actually working for the script writers or whatnot. It's a funny story, but you just don't know what big. Are we calling it big gaming now? Big OGL. What?
I don't
know when they're going to swoop in.
Yeah, I don't know really what we call it at this point, right? I mean, look at games like Shadow Dark comes. I mee, and people saying came out of nowhere, did $1.3 million on Kickstarter, but then Kelsey paid her dues up front, writing for 5e. Nothing comes from nowhere. It's kind of like when I started doing my podcast, and I'm not going to name the podcast that complained that Talking Crit came out of nowhere and didn't pay his dues, and it's like, well, and then say, well, because apparently he had a blog that brought over traffic. That's the whole thing.
And writers have known that. Fiction writers have known this for years. Cormac McCarthy said years ago, he's like, look, the cold reality is all books are built on some other books. It's just a brick laid on top of one another. I mean, and so it's okay to say, yeah, you know what, I made this new thing, but it was inspired by this thing and that thing and the other thing. There's nothing wrong with that, and that's what's great for, like, people just creating their own homebrew stuff and then putting it on Drive-Thru RPG for free, for example. There should be at least I think there should be a little leeway in all these different OGLs and legal permissions that allow people to make stuff and share it with their friends or like-minded people, without the threat of being just like having a boot stepped on you, Firefly, Expanse, lots of other games, Cephas Engine. This is all based off of Traveler. Traveler is based off of other stuff, Mark Miller straight up will say that. You go back to the Cormac McCarthy analogy about just novels being adapted, parts of them from other novels. The scene in Blood Meridian where, what was it, Toadvine has a choice of whether or not he's going to shoot the judge. All right, is no different than the scene from Moby Dick where Starbuck has an opportunity to kill Captain Ahab. It's the same goddamn scene. All right, it's just in a different book 100 years later.
Yeah.
Okay, and the same is true to some extent with projects like role-playing games, I think. So I mean, we all get our stuff from somewhere. You know, Guyjack's got Dungeons and Dragons from somewhere. You know, goblins have been around a lot longer than.
Well, I mean, how many original ideas is there left in fantasy at this point? I mean,
Right.
it's hard to find an original idea. Most ideas, that's the story of the whole OSR. The whole OSR is, hey, we used to do things like this 20 years ago, and now you kids that have been playing now don't understand it, but we're going to bring this back again. But it's just how gaming was in the 1970s and 80s.
Let's leave the kids alone. They'll find their way. They'll find their way. let them have their thing, man. Let them do what they want to do. I let them sort out the drow elves on their own. You know, it's got nothing to do with my table. You know what I mean. But no, I know what you're saying, and I hear you. And we can talk all night about it and get just hammered, drunk, and throw things and talk about how we're gonna storm Hasbro and burn it down and yeah. Can we say that on YouTube?
You can. I mean,
Why not?
I don't know, but I'm guessing you never heard the rumors that I'm a paid WotC show.
Yeah, obviously.
You know, there is that belief that the person who picks on WotC at least twice a week for them stepping on their own dick is a WotC show. So I mean, you gotta play it both ways sometimes. You gotta play it close. But now, and we have gone into the weeds, obviously, and that says a lot about the people here. It's like herding cats. All right, but getting
it's all good. This is all good information. What do you mean?
No, it is all good information. But let's just take a half step back. Look at the book that Jeff was holding up before. Now, Jeff, is this adventure or setting or both?
Well, it is actually it is a setting, but it's really a bunch of, I don't know the best way of talking about it. Maybe Adam has a good way of putting it, but it's a setting, but it's also written in a way that's very concise, easy to put at your table, and it also has adventure hooks and NPCs and various organizations that are written in a very concise way. So like, for instance, we'll have like a corrupt police precinct. So we have the write-up of the strengths or weaknesses, because they are like a gang. And we also have NPCs, which have different write-ups. And so, and it's got missions that involve them. So a lot of these people, we're not making any judgments. These are a lot of gritty people that are kind of tainted gray, we'll say. And they could be allies of the PCs. They could be enemies of the PCs. They could be patrons. They maybe the PCs would be doing jobs against them. But we provide a lot of different things and a lot of different opportunities, and that players and GMs can kind of choose their way on how they want to run a campaign, really, in this setting.
Yeah, if I could just go ahead.
Let
me finish.
And I was going to say that this is only the first issue.
Okay.
So just to give you just a quick flyby, I'll hand it over to Adam. So we start out with various star systems, so write-ups in history, so you kind of get some context, and then because talking about the expanse, the solar system. So really, the idea is staying heavily in the solar system, because there's a lot of fun things we can do in the solar system. We don't need to be like Star Wars, going from Tatooine to wherever. We can actually stay within the system like the expanse and create a lot of factions and a lot of tension with the various characters and different organizations. And then, so we have a history of the Brixton system. So we kind of lay out a little bit of what's going on with each of the planets. And each of the planets are different in that they provide a different style of adventure. So if you're wanting more exploration, we got a planet for that. If you're wanting more horror, we got another planet for that. We're focusing on the planet of Deluvia. So we have a map. So we're kind of going broad, zooming in, and then going over different settlements, going through Sky City, and laying out people. So we're going to be exploring this whole setting, issue by issue.
Yeah, and just if I could add on to that, so one of the things, and people I know who are really heavy into role playing games, they buy supplements a lot of times just to read. Okay, they like lore. Some people like lore, and they just like to read lore. RuneQuest is great for that, right? Yeah, and they just read it simply for the background of like a certain little area. Other people do it, to get ideas that they incorporate into their own games. And one of the things that kind of grew on its own while developing Scoundrels of Brixton, this Brixton solar system, was just, and this supplement was just how useful it actually can be to a referee. And I'll give you some examples. Not only there's a concise background on the solar system itself and how it came to be colonized and who the major players are, but there's multiple planets, each with a different environment. Like Jeff was saying, some planets are just they're right next to the sun and it's just a scorched wasteland. Others are the very lush agricultural worlds, but they're plagued by earthquakes. That's the problem. Others are, a mineral rich world being just bled dry. You have, of course, all these little smaller settlements and outposts in the outer asteroid belt. So you have all these little different mini settings within the overall setting of the Brixton system inside the supplement. What's also cool is this supplement also introduces people to the major players in the systems, and going along with those players, there's little adventure hooks, little adventure seeds that a referee can take and run with. There's detailed NPCs, and we tried to give these NPCs not just a bank of stats. We gave them motivations. We gave them things they want, things they don't want, the weaknesses and their personalities. So even in a very short, concise little section of page, you've got a pretty detailed, fleshed out character. And going back to like all the different things referees can do with this, you could play one of these crime factions, and you could have your player characters play as one of these pre-generated NPCs. These NPCs could just be NPCs. They could be friends. They could be foes. The crime faction could be something that your players are trying to join. They could be an enemy. On top of that, you've got all these governments from other solar systems, dipping their toes into the pot, so to speak, of wealth to be gained in this solar system. Yes, this is going to be a series of zines. Just saw answer that question, and I'll get into that in a second. So there's a lot going on here, and all these little different worlds and different NPCs and different organizations and crime organizations, they're all kind of tied together by the single thread that everyone in this solar system is a scumbag. All right, everyone's a crook. Even all right, there's really no victim. There's some people who are victimized more than others.
Right.
Everyone's trying to get over on the other person. Everyone is a scoundrel, for lack of a better word, in some way. And so a referee, and I'll give you an example of how this, just any referee running sci-fi role-playing games could use this. Say you're running Travelers Pirates of Drynax, okay? And your characters roll, or you're doing one of Mongoose Adventures in the Spinwood Marches, and your characters, they roll a misjump in their ship, all right? And say the referee doesn't want to kill them all off, all right? He could just have them appear out of the jump space in the Brixton system, and in a very short period of time, be able to digest the content that's in this little zine, this little supplement, and just boom, start gaming. and start inserting their characters into the an environment that's already fleshed out pretty well in a short space. And let me give you an example. So here's Scoundrels, right? And talk about size. Here's the Traveler Little Black Book size.
Oh,
okay,
no.
The facsimile edition. All right. Or say, for example, here's Mongoose Journal of the Traveler's Aid Society. It's about the same concise compact format. So people who like the old school Traveler stuff will kind of appreciate not only the super killer cover art that we've got, but there's good maps and graphics inside, but it's compact, it's portable. You're not lugging a giant thing around to your gaming table, or having to leaf through and tons of pages to find the little section that you want. It's ready to use. And like I said, this is like this first issue does a lot of adventures, and there's a lot of adventure hooks. There's a lot of these new organizations and basically crime gangs, but it also does a lot to establish the bones, I guess, the parameters of the setting that you're working in. So it is a setting,
right?
But it's like setting plus, and then each of these subsequent zines, as many as Jeff wants to do, will kind of not only build on that, but go in, get even nastier, I guess, for the player characters. Because sometimes referees, they have and this is true of all of us, who role play. We roll up a character, and the character takes on a life of its own, or the game takes on a life of its own, and all of a sudden, the characters just start doing nasty bonkers things sometimes, right? And this kind of Scoundrels of Brixton, this gritty, seedy setting in the far future, is kind of perfect for people who want to do that. You can go in there and you could be a space-going miscreant, you could be, you could be your space paladin and try to, bring justice to this kind of semi-lawless world and different planets that are just being squeezed dry by off-world corporations. So there's a lot of different ground that a small little product covers, and that's what I think what's really great about it is just how useful it is to people who run these kind of sci-fi campaigns.
Yeah,
and
I think also
it's worth checking out. I mean, honest to God, I don't know how Jeff made this really high quality design and product for the price he did, but I'm really thrilled to be working on this project. It's a lot of fun.
And so I think the other thing too is we really worked on keeping the information concise and digestible. Like, there's nothing I hate worse than going through 3,000 words of just run-on text. We're not interested. You're not necessarily interested on every single detail of a corporation. Right. Just need to know what things are important. Who are they and what are their motivations? Who are the people involved, and what are their goals and what are their problems?
You want to learn about like the economics of an alien civilization without closing the book and feeling like you've just attended an economics class. You want to get in there and just get the gist of it. And you got to trust referees to be able to fill in the details. You can bog players and referees down with too much stuff. People who run, sci-fi RPGs, they know what they're doing. They know they've got their world established. Maybe they just run out of ideas for a week, right. Or they just want a little diversion to take their characters off on something. This just gives them all the information they need. And like I said, in a really short real estate.
And also these organizations, these people, these gangs, they're transportable to your own game. There's nothing in them that says this has to be, with the system. You can just say, you know what, I like these handful of people. I'll sprinkle them in my game, and you're good to go.
Jeff, you want to answer David Thompson's question here on your screen?
Yes. It is on Kickstarter right now.
Yeah, that's a good thing. That's always good to know.
Yes. Support the Kickstarter because this is Adam's first time of actually being part of a Kickstarter and seeing what goes on behind the scenes. In this long, dry spell, he's finding out how just torturous it is. So nothing would make us happier.
Why do you think I'm drinking?
So, well, you make a ton of money in your first 3 days. Then it's like it disappears off the face of the earth for the next 3 weeks, and then you make all the rest of your money the last week or so. So it's just
each
weird.
day, as long as you're making positive money, you're happy.
Yeah, it's very odd how it works, but yes.
One of the things that's cool, I mean, the Kickstarter, I think like Jeff said, this is my first one, so I'm limited in my information that I can bring to the table, but it seems to be going pretty well. Funding's going steady. I mean, the project's gonna happen. But I'm hoping it exceeds its goals considerably, because Jeff's a pretty good guy to work for. I mean, he actually pays his contributors, and he pays well, and he's a decent guy to work with. And we've all had just crappy bosses in our lives, and especially as doing like freelance writing and things. I mean, you get people who get paid for peanuts, man, and the work is not valued. They're not. It's not appreciated. And Jeff's not like that as a publisher. So the better the Kickstarter does, the way I look at it, the more he can pay more contributors. I mean, that's one of the things he's wanted to do, is bring in more people to this scoundrelverse, as we're kind of calling it. More artists, people who do cartography, people who do starship deck plans, other writers with other points of view and other cool ideas that they just don't know how to get out there and share with people. And so, I hope it goes gangbusters, just simply so Jeff can bring more of these people in and pay them a decent rate, and keep, make each edition build on the previous one, and just so it just keeps getting better and better and more interesting and more useful for people who are doing this.
Well, at $3 for a PDF, that's a bargain. Swear to God, I'm looking at it right now.
Especially if you're playing any. I mean, you're describing this game, and I'm sitting there. I'm thinking this would work great with my old Star Wars campaign, because our Star Wars campaign was extremely. It was gritty. It was not. It was Andor before Andor was Andor. This is back.
Scoundrels of Brixton is really. I mean, it says it's marketed. It's written with Cepheus mechanics, and it's Traveler-ish, but it's very rules agnostic. You can there's nothing that anyone can't easily weave in any sci-fi.
The only rules it has is really is the characters. There is no other mechanics that you see, and you can look at that and you can make an easy conversion to any system.
Yeah, any sci-fi system. And that's another thing that was a challenge, in developing this project, is to make it available or useful to a wide audience. We didn't just want to pigeonhole into one particular system, and kind of wipe away people who play things like Star Wars. Yeah, you could totally take this and put this into a Star Wars setting with very, very minimal prep time and very minimal conversion time. What is it? Mothership. That's a game, right?
Mothership.
Okay, yeah, you could easily tweak this into that. So that's another cool thing about the finished product and what we're talking about doing going forward. But it was a challenge in from my end, doing the writing and developing. I mean, I took, Jeff gave me his ideas, and I'm the one to kind of put all the little nuggets together in order, so to speak, so that the writing, the prose would be at least consistent. Yeah.
Don't give him any ideas. I don't need Adam to unionize.
Going to negotiate after all this is said and done. No, so yeah. And Jeff, I mean, I came in on this as a very small scale, And then he asked me to take a look at if you talk about how all this started. I came in to just create a just one crime gang, and then I did, and then he's like, I'm going to do that in the next issue. You want to take a look at what I've got right now, and I did, and I was like, all these are just great ideas, man. This whole setting has, in the newspaper business, I used to be a newspaper reporter. Don't hold it against me. But we would say, oh, this story has legs. It goes someplace. There's just so many different ways to present it and look at it and use it in a particular role-playing game system. And I was just like fascinated with it. He just I was like, well, send me more, just half-baked ideas. And I'm going to flush these out and untangle all the knots and make everything flow smoothly. And it was just it was crazy the way it all just came together. But yeah, Jeff's got a lot of good ideas. I don't think enough people know that. And so he's a good guy to work with, and I think people, especially scoundrels, are going to dig it. I do. I'm fairly confident about that, and they're going to want more. And yeah, I hope he goes all in.
Yeah, and for $3 a PDF, you just almost can't afford not to. And at $15 for a physical copy, and these are also I ship. So all the U.S. backed is shipped in the U.S. I print it through Mixam, but I also use print on demand for the rest of the world. So it's actually the UK and EU. It's actually reasonable, the shipping,
which is great. I mean, you talk about Traveler. There's a lot of Traveler people in Europe, man. It's big, So yeah, it's cool that Jeff was able to be able to do that. For the consumer. I hate to use the word consumers, but you know what I mean, because a lot of these shipping's expensive.
Yeah,
and it limits the audience of who can enjoy what you're putting out. And that, we talk about big creators, small creators. That's a thing that guys like Jeff have to take into consideration. So yeah, it's a clever product and a clever Kickstarter campaign, I think. I mean, there's a lot to it. You want the physical copy. This freaking thing looks good. I mean, it just feels good in your hands. And that's all Jeff.
Well, I was saying earlier, I got the Gary's Appendix, which are by Jeff, and he puts out good products. They're so slick. Yeah, they're so slick. They're not even. I don't even know if I'd call it a fanzine. It's so beautiful. I mean, everything about it is just quality. I mean, I'm talking like actually physically slick. I mean, the cover, everything. It's a quality product, which really impressed me at first. And I thought, well, he's going to lose the diehard OSR guys because it's too nice. It's too nice a product.
Well, honestly,
it's actually a beautiful product.
Yeah, and that's what you want that too. I mean, if you're a guy who has got a gaming shelf, right? And you've got all your gaming books, right? You want it to kick ass, when people come in and take a look at your stuff. I mean, you do. You put it up there for a reason, so you can get to it. But it's also, man, it looks good. It's like a trophy case.
Sure.
And yeah, the physical copy of Scoundrels of Brixton will look pretty tight.
Well, Mike, I haven't figured out what I want to do this with, but you mentioning that, I would like to write a zine and then pay somebody to use a typewriter and type it up, and then just copy and paste that in the graphics, just like the old days. Scan it and then do it as more of an old school feel. I'll do that someday with something. I just don't know what yet.
Well, I mean, I joke, but I know those products are the quality is amazing on those, really, really good, and the content obviously is great too, but and very useful. But yeah, it's a step up from your normal fanzine type stuff you might have bought. When you do the fanzine every year, when they have the big fanzine thing on a Kickstarter. I think your stuff, Jeff's, is really kind of a step above that. So,
oh well, thank you, Mike.
Totally unsolicited. By the way, I didn't get any of this for free. I had to pay money to get this. So it's
Pay your dues,
I was
Mike.
just, I was very, Eric can tell you sometimes I just, like Eric kind of got me into Shadow Dark. I saw it. And he goes, "Hey man, have you seen Shadow Dark?" And I said, "Yeah, it's 5e something." He goes, "No, you're really gonna like it, Mike. I guarantee it. You really will like it." I'm like, "Well, I trust Eric," so I bought it and I got the quick start. And it was awesome. And I was like, "This is really good." So I backed it. I talked to Kelsey. She's great. And by the way, she'll be on the show next week. Plug. And but yeah, it was really great. So I'm like, every once in a while I just get surprised by a product, because I guess it's kind of like a movie reviewer. If you've been reviewing movies for 30 years, everything's just crap to you. Okay, it's a buddy movie, it's a rom-com, it's whatever. And every once in a while when you get something that surprises you, it just blows you like, whoa, hold on, I haven't seen this in a while. And that's how I feel with sometimes these OSR products. I've seen this. I'm like, oh wait, hey, this is actually really good. And I feel that way about Jeff's products. I was just really surprised. I mean, not that I didn't think you could do good product, right. Jeff, but it's just that I was like, well, this is actually, everything in here is useful. I mean, I'll give you an example. So I'm a D&D collector, and I was going through a lot of my old Dragon magazine issues back in the day. I'm talking like, the early issues, the first 10 or 12, and they were really pretty terrible. And I mean terrible by the fact they didn't have a lot of stuff to publish. And so they're publishing fiction by people you've never heard of. Articles on military formations in ancient India. I mean, they're just trying to get stuff in there. They're just trying to fill up pages. And it's just, I mean, God love Tim Cass for being an editor, all that stuff. It's just not very good. The early issues of Dragon are really pretty terrible. They're just bad. And nowadays,
still love them though. God, we loved them as kids.
Well, they look great. Everything about it, just screams old school. But God, you get in there, and you're like, well, I would never open this magazine again. There's nothing in there useful. And that's what's great about when you get a fanzine like this, and everything in there is useful. Like, okay, here's a monster I'm going to use. Here's a spell I can use. Here's an interesting article about this or that, and that's what I think makes a great fanzine, is when every little part in there. Now, Dragon magazine eventually became that when it got to about the 20s and 30s and 40s, and then you're like getting an issue like, oh, everything's useful here. Here's a little adventure. Here's something about spells. Here's something about fighters, and so. Eventually it ended up being that way. That's how I think at least the appendix is, and it looks like Guns of Brixton or Guns of Brixton. I'm showing my Clash.
Well, that's the inspiration.
We're all going to get sued now. Great.
Oh no!
The lawyers for the Clash are going to want $500.
Oh, the only band that matters is going to sue us now. Well, they've been gone for a while, but no. But I think that strikes me as the same thing. Is like there's a lot of usefulness in there because. I mean, look, we all play different things. I mean, I play different games than Eric plays. I mean, and most of the friends I know, we all play just a conglomerate of games. And so you want something that's going to transfer to any version of old school rules. Right. You don't want something that's going to be so specific that, you can only use with travel. Yeah, you can only use this with 1E. Yeah, you can only use this with whatever. And that's one of the great things about the hobby is finding, hey, this is useful with anything. This monster, you can reskin this monster, do anything with it.
And that's what's hard is in some ways you want to say this thing is universal, but if you say it's universal, then people tend to ignore it. But if you put a sticker on it that says like OSE, like which I did, you're also kind of at that moment limiting it to people who are thinking, oh, it's just an OSE product. It's a very difficult,
It's a weird line to kind of straddle. I know exactly what you're talking about, because we have the same thing at Frog God Games, which I have some stuff with. But Frog God Games, when we gave Swords of Wizardry back to Matt Finch, we're sitting there like, well, we really want an old school version of the rules still, because we like old school role playing, but we got to do 5e because 5e is the big 800-pound gorilla. Well, then all this stuff happened with the OGL this year, and so then we're like, okay, we want to do OSC, and so we just thought, well, we're just going to make a category called OSR. OSR will cover anything old school. But then we found that people weren't interested in something just called OSR. They wanted OSC. They wanted Swords and Wizardry. They wanted Shadow Dark. They want a specific name on the product because to them, like for instance, OSC means they can use it with any old school product. It doesn't just mean OSC to them. So that's actually pretty smart because, if you put a specific name on there, you grab in those people. Like, so you're getting the whole OSC audience, but you're also getting all the OSR people that also like, hey, I just like old school gaming and I can easily convert OSC to something else. So.
And I think that's been one of the benefits with OSC is people know exactly what it is, even if they don't play it. Everybody knows it's very very easy to port over.
Yeah, again, the Kickstarter was extremely popular and successful. I mean, they made $750,000. So yeah, it's probably right now. I mean, I know Swords and Wizards just had a very successful campaign, but how much did they make, Eric? They make 200. I can't remember. I mean, they did well. They didn't do bad by any means, but they didn't do anything near the OSC Kickstarter. No. So and so OSC is kind of they become the 800-pound gorilla when it comes to old school role playing game. Just like Kelsey's Shadow Dark is kind of that, they made $1.3 million. She became the 800-pound gorilla of 5e, because I don't know how versed you guys are in the way sales are going now, but 5e is just in the toilet. And that's because people have 5e is a perfectly fine game, but the problem is there's so much of an association with WotC, and there's so much backlash against WotC. People are dropping 5e, but they will stay with a 5e clone like Shadow Dark, which shows by the fact that she made, $1.3 million in a Kickstarter.
Yeah, but the other thing is even though they're switching, even though they're supposedly staying 5e, they are switching over. So I think there is also in that background people saying, I'm not going to be buying anything more because I don't know what they're going to do with the rules.
Right.
Well, yeah, there's always that 1 year between editions when everybody's just kind of like, I'm going to wait and see how this.
But Mike, it's not a new edition. They told us it's not a new edition.
Well, yeah, they told us it was a new edition. I'm sorry.
However, all the classes are changing. But
it's not 6.0. It's not 5.5. It's not 5.25. It's just the same thing. Yeah, whatever.
And by the way, Matt made 146 plus.
Yeah, so that's successful by any metric, but it's not OSC $730,000 successful I think it's good. It's probably not a bad idea to put something like OSC or Swords and Wizards on your cover, and then at that point people realize, okay, I can use this with any old school game. And like Brixton, the same way, you can just say, look, this is useful with almost any science fiction role playing game of this sort, Traveler, et cetera, et cetera.
Well, the thing is, I've got some projects that I have, that's cooking in the background, and I see Shadow Dark, and I'm like, it's like, because there's some things I'd like to do a science fantasy setting, pulp, but then I start thinking I don't really have it. Yeah, it's more conceptual. I haven't really done it, but like I look at Shadow Dark, I'm like, should I? It starts becoming very tempting to start looking at a lot of these new creators and try and ride that hotness and knowing what to hitch your wagon to.
No, I mean that's also interesting too, because like you said, you kind of say, okay, here's the hot thing. Do I want to just do the hot thing? Because maybe the hot thing's not going to be the hot thing in a year. I mean, you don't really know if it has staying power. I mean, obviously the fact that such and such a game makes $1 million at Kickstarter probably means it's successful. But I mean, Eric, and I can give you, I can't. I don't want to embarrass anybody, but I'll give you some successful games that made over $1 million last year that you wouldn't even remember the name of because they were really hot and everybody thought it was really cool, and then they all bought it, and now nobody plays it in convention. Eric probably knows what I'm talking about. I probably just give the name. I can't remember. It's the one about the spirit animal something. I don't know. It was based on a Native American role-playing game.
Coyote.
And they did massive numbers. But here we are a year later, nobody plays it. And I guarantee you, if you throw that name out in a discussion, nobody will remember it. It was just something that seemed really cool. Hey, it's playing Native American, this and legends and whatever. And it was really cool. And everybody got excited. And then nobody plays it and nobody knows what it is. And, but the guy made $1 million. So, but yeah, so it's tough. You got to sit there and go, okay, what's going to be popular, not just this year, but next year.
Right. And I think Shadow Dark has staying power. I mean, the Discord is extremely active. The Facebook group is extremely active, and that tells you a lot of what's going on there too. And also, Kelsey built a reputation beforehand. Like we went into that. You these instant successes that people talk about are usually a decade or so in the making. People don't come out of nowhere,
right?
And all of a sudden it's like, woof! It's like no, they've been honing their craft. They've been working in adjacent fields, or whatever.
That's true. People who write books too, man. They're like, oh, it's his debut novel and it just kills. And this most of the time this person's been writing short stories.
Oh,
for,
or
like
novels.
you said, for a
Sure. Oh, yeah,
decade.
sure.
You know,
Yeah.
some of what you're talking about, man. Did I just cut you off? I don't want to be an
No,
asshole.
I was going to say that I know the novel stuff because
I cut him off all the
my
time.
sister's published. She published her published novel. Her debut novel was the third full novel that she wrote.
Right, exactly. You know, some of what you're talking about, like what system to make this for, what's going to be the new hot thing. Jeff and I had this debate with Scoundrels here. Is this going to be Blades in the Dark? Is this going to be straight Traveler? Are we just going to roll the dice? And it was it was a little bit of a risk or something to consider because, Traveler, Cephas Engine role players, sci-fi role players, it's not huge. I mean, it's really not a huge in terms of numbers of people who are actually playing when you compare it to a lot of other games. But they're loyal, they're loyal to the system or to the setting, the overall sci-fi role-playing game setting. So, going into this Kickstarter, we knew we're not gonna make $1 million on
Right.
this zine. You're not gonna make $1 million on just about any Cepheus Engine product. Not right off the bat. But hopefully, people will dig it and become like a lot of Traveler and Cephas, players, and just kind of become a little bit of loyalty to the then they're looking forward to the next issue. Wanting to kind of keep rolling with it, and that's where I'm saying this metaphorically. That's where you make your money. That's where you get people who are
it's
enjoying
a community.
Yeah, and enjoying your products. That's where it comes from. So yeah, no, I know exactly what you're talking about, and that we talk about like developing, Kickstarter projects and whatnot, and just small publications. These things have to go into the broth, so to speak, as you're generating the content and shaping it and developing it. Who is this for? And how much of a risk are you willing to take? Some people want to go big and they want to make, millions of dollars.
Right.
Other people just want to put out cool stuff or stuff that really, it means something to them. You see a lot of like stuff on Drive Through RPG and it's for free, right? I know a few people and they're like, yeah, I'm making this solo adventure and you know what? It's going to be great. I've been working on it for years, and I'm just going to put it on Drive Through for free. And that's their jam. So as a creator, as a publisher like Jeff, you got to like really, I recommend really putting some thought into that. When looking at like just what mechanics are we going to use? What system is this going to be for? Is it just one system? Is it many systems? Is it just completely agnostic? It's all got to be thought out. And it's a roll of the dice. I mean, that's another metaphor.
Right, but
rolling the dice.
And as Mike had said, though, if you make it system neutral, people don't want it. They feel it's going to be bland. They feel it's going to lack that. I mean,
it's so counterintuitive, but it's so true.
It is true. But now Bob G in the comments is like, "Wow, this sounds really good. That I could use this with Rogue Trader from Warhammer 40K."
Yes.
And
yes,
I mean, that's why, like most. In my opinion, most of the better fantasy settings in the OSR are very light on the crunch, very strong on the fluff, because that is transportable across systems. But now, with my gaming group, they really enjoy the DCC RPG adventures, but they don't like the system. They find it too swingy, too hard to predict. So I will run DCC RPG adventures where I convert it on the fly. Now, admittedly, I've been playing since 1980. I can do that.
Yeah.
But DCC is a, quote, OSR game that has very little to do with the rest of the OSR games.
Scoundrels is like that too. I mean, like in developing the NPC, the stats for them. So we stuck with we settled on Cepheus. So you've got a character who's streetwise. All right. But everybody kind of can figure that out and translate that skill into whatever it applies to in a different game system.
Right.
You know, pretty. You want to keep it. You have to get to a point when you're creating that you have to choose. You know, something just to provide a framework, especially in terms of I'm talking specifically about non-player characters right now. You've got to choose a system so that you can provide something to give this character an identity, but you want to do it in a way that yeah, like you said, you can take this because you've been doing this a while and just tweak it on the fly, and it's no problem. You don't have to sit there and with a pencil and dice and
calculator.
Crunch this
spreadsheet
guy that's probably going to be ignored by your
conversion
PCs
chart.
anyways.
Well, remember too, as the DM, the only person that sees the crunch is you. Right?
Yeah.
Your players, they see the quote fluff, they see the description. So as long as you on your side of the screen as the GM know what the abilities are that you're converting over, or what defines the creature, the person, the beast, the vehicle.
Yeah,
that's all that matters to you. Those nobody cares about the crunch unless it directly is in their hands. I'm a player. I want to know about my crunch. I don't need to know about the monster's crunch. I don't need to know about how the ships work unless I'm the one flying the ship. Right? So as long as your players are on the other side of that, you don't have to worry about it as a GM. You just make things.
Well, that's kind of an old school versus new school argument too, though, because there's the old joke that the guy who makes the 16-page backstory for his character that nobody really cares about because he's going to die in the first 3 rooms of the dungeon. But the same thing when people when they're writing an adventure for a DM to run, you have the very minimal type stuff. Like I guess Greg Gillespie's a good example of that. He just puts very short room description sentences. That's all up to you. You decide how much you want to describe or whatever. And then you have the I don't know if it's a 5e approach, but you have certain people that like to have a 2-page long description of the room. And do you really need to know the history of the guy who made the room because your players don't care? I mean, you might care as a DM because it's something that you might put in the background of your story, but it's not important to the game as a whole. But that's a huge discussion in gaming. I mean, is that important or is that not important to have?
Jeff and I went round and round about this. I thought we were going to go to blows over Zoom and DMs a couple of times over just how much. We talk about this is a concise little supplement. How much are we going to put in? So we tried to just, Jeff wanted like a lot of detail in some areas, and I wanted just bare bones to let the ref run with it. And, we kind of met in the middle. I think we worked it out, I think. But yeah, no, you make a great point, and everyone's kind of, it's with any kind of description, with anything, with any kind of content in any kind of medium. It has to have a purpose. What is it there for? I mean, people like the fluff, but as long as the fluff is it has a purpose. It's there for a reason.
Well, I think what it comes down to is people come to those supplements for different reasons.
Yeah.
And so some people, like Pathfinder is especially well written, Venture Paths, and people buy them just to read.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was talking about earlier when they're like, they buy it just to read the lore and they love it.
And I think, Greg's being very, his stuff is very terse, but this is meant to be kind of more in the middle where it gets you up to speed quickly without, you're not going to be spending, 7 pages read about a faction. That's just not the point.
Right.
And I think even with adventures, there's a lot of discussion of how much detail, whether you go old school essentials, where it's very bare bones, less bare bones than Greg, or more fleshed out. And I think that's, it's also kind of the taste. But our goal is really to kind of get it that you could just flip through it, get something going in a short amount of time without having to spend 3 hours reading through a book to understand the basics.
And one of the things that was challenging too, like you talk about like the adventure hook aspects of creating creating scoundrels is that these are almost all heists in some respect, and so you don't want to just have a generic, you don't want to give the GM just a generic scenario in that when you're you're trying to. A good crime story has a lot of twists and turns, and that can be difficult to flesh out in 160 words.
Right.
You know, it's tough to like, okay, here's what's going to happen. And then this is going to happen. And then that's going to happen. And oh, by the way, you're out to get this, but also someone else is out to get this. And oh, guess what? The time changed. You only have 3 hours to get it done. You know, so you're trying to make an adventure hook that covers like all these little cool heist, you know, Jason Bourne kind of Mission Impossible action scenes in, you know, like, what was it, 160 words for some of them?
Yeah.
I think that was the thing. So that was, you know, that took a little work, man. I spent some nights by myself in my dining room after everyone was asleep trying to scratch it. So, because I'm not a big crime guy, really. I mean, I like crime, but I'm not good. I mean, this is why I'm not a thief. You know, if I was, we wouldn't be talking. I'd be a professional art thief. Okay. I would be, you know, sitting on the Riviera right now, having a drink, planning my next caper. All right. And it would be great. Yeah.
Oh, by the way, Eric, that game was Coyote and Crow. You remember that one?
Yes, I actually.
Yes.
They made $1 million and they were pretty successful. But I was just flipping around their blog while this, and the game, they don't really run it at conventions. The guy even talks about, he goes, hey, just to let you know, I don't run this game at conventions. I just appear at conventions and do talks. so the game's not even be running at conventions, but it was very successful. It's just, if you were planning on making a Coyote and Crow spinoff, you were probably SOL at this point, because
there's not an audience for it. Yeah.
No,
well,
I mean, everybody bought it. I mean, it's probably one of those games that's great to read, you know?
Yes.
It has great ideas, but yeah, nobody really plays it. So.
And I kind of wonder why. Is it like, I wonder if it's just because the game system wasn't great, or if it was because, I mean, or it's just, you kind of makes you wonder why.
I've never read it. Yeah, I've never read it. I know it's a very odd system. It's a die 12 system, which I must be probably unique with the creator, but I don't know. I really have never read it, so I don't really know. So,
well, I think what it is too is, you know, when your setting goes, I'm about to say off the reservation, probably a bad term to use in this case. But when your setting goes too far from the cultural norms, from fantasy and science fiction or post-apocalypse, and goes into its own unique place, yes, it can be exciting. Yes, it can be something that people go, hey, I'd love to read that and play that. And then reality comes down to, I have no idea how to fucking run this. I have no idea how to play this, because it's so alien to what I know from general media.
And so I'll give you a great example of that, Eric. We talked about this before. Is Empire of the Petal Throne, which is a great game with a really incredibly detailed, unique background. I mean, one of the coolest backgrounds ever. I mean, it's an alien planet that has a history that goes back thousands of years, and it appears like it's almost like a medieval planet, but they have ray guns. I mean, it's really cool. The problem is it was such a immersive, complicated setting that you don't run into a lot of people that actually want to run the game. It's a hard game to run. And now there's people that do it very well. I know Vincent Raymond and Jeff D like to run it, and I think Steve Winter does too. But other than that, I just don't know a lot of people that play it, because the people that play it don't know where to come at the game, because it's not Tolkien fantasy. I mean, it's unique. It's unique. It's basically science fantasy, and that's tough for a lot of people to get a handle on. Okay, I'm used to playing a ranger. I want to play like a ranger. Well, Temple doesn't have any rangers. You want to play this or this? What is that? Well, this does. I mean, it ends up being a lot of explanation for somebody who may, you know, like, oh, wow, that buy-in's too much of a buy-in. I just want to play a guy that kills orcs. I just want to play a magic user. And so yes, when it comes to something that, like, let's say like Coyote and Crow, which and I'm going to say freely, I don't know anything about it. I just know it's a Native American game of science fantasy, but maybe it's just something that's so foreign to what people are used to. They're like, well, I don't really know what kind of character I want to play or what I want to do. And maybe the DM doesn't really know how to run it very well. And that becomes an issue. It's
authors struggle with that, you know, in book publishing. They want you to, when you pitch a book project, they want you to have a comp. What's your comp title? What's a comparison title? You know,
right.
You know, and it's similar. It can be similar, I think, with RPG systems, is because you've got to give a framework to some extent, you know, or people don't know how to market it. You know, they don't know how to market it. They don't know what to do with it, and is it going to be for everyone? Like you were talking about this Crow game, man. I for some reason just started thinking about the old Gamma World. Remember the old original Gamma World?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, right. You had the bunny rabbits with the guns, right? The mutant bunny rabbits and the little pictures inside, but that was a tough game to run. It could be a challenge to play, but how do you run that? Because it's like at the time it came out, it wasn't a lot of different games. It was
there weren't, and the part of the problem with Gamma World, coming at it from a D&D player's perspective,
which pretty much everybody was.
Which was right.
Yeah, everybody.
Gamma World was my first non-AD&D purchase.
Right.
That was my own money, and I was all
got
excited.
It sitting right here. Yeah,
the old the gray cover on the it's like yeah.
It's right there.
And I bought it and I got it home. I'm sitting in my living room as a teenager, and I'm going, what the fuck? So,
but bunny rabbits.
I understand. I mean, I'm seeing D&D in the rules, and then it goes for each point of Constitution, you roll like 1d8 for your hit points. Oh wait a second. So at first level, if I have an 18 con, I can have 100 hit points, or I can have 8, and it's never going to change. I went,
yeah, there was some weird.
There was a lot of design. Yeah, they had some design flaws. But yeah, well, a lot of Gamma World also was taken from literature, which back then there was a few examples. I mean, the Lanier made Hero's Journey. There was a few examples of literature, but yeah, there wasn't any other game. I mean, at that point, that was the first game that was, hey, this is a mutant science fantasy, mash it up type game.
Post-apocalyptic.
Yeah.
I mean, it had a little bit of everything. It had all the ingredients in it. I guess maybe a different example is similar game. Remember Moreau Project, the Moreau Project?
Oh yeah, post-apocalyptic. Yeah.
Yeah. Now I've stopped paying attention to that after the was it first or second edition came out that I have. I got that over there too. I'd have to leave, but I mean it was hard to run because of the mechanics, and hard to play. But until the modules came out, as a person trying to run this campaign, it was so open sandbox. Mm-hmm. You had no framework. Yeah. Really, you had no comparable title to kind of give what you were trying to do at your gaming table some roots. So we want to try to avoid that.
I got my copy because a friend of mine, Paul, handed it to me and said, I really want to play this. I'm like, okay.
Project, right?
He goes, it's really, really cool. I'm like, okay. I don't fucking understand it. Like, you understand all these rules, so here. And
good old FG. Was that FG? That was FG, right? FG.
I don't think it was actually. No, I don't think it was.
God,
but
FG
here's the thing.
Legendary.
I quickly put it right next to Bushido in really cool games that I will never learn how to fucking run. So, I mean, because it was that I was like, I can't figure out the combat.
I cherish my copy of Moral Project. I do. I still do.
The perfect system for Moral Project?
Oh, yeah. It was called a company called Timeline Limited. Yeah. I seem to remember that system.
There you go.
It was a tough system.
Was a tough system.
Just take Cephas Engine and put it into Moral Project and you're good.
I started to do that once.
The basic plot, the basic setting's fine. Yeah, you just need to have a rule system that works. Yeah.
But I think going back to go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was to say, going back to, Coyote and Crow and talking about knowing what to do. And that's what's, I think, key about a lot of times buying an IP. Like you take something like Star Wars, it's very complicated. But you play a Star Wars game, you say Stormtrooper, everybody knows what a Stormtrooper is. Somebody says Empire, everybody knows what you don't have to go through all this trouble because players do not want to read histories. They don't want to go through detailed anything. Yeah. They just want to play. And that's what's nice thing about IPs. And also, if you can't say, oh, these people are like Stormtroopers or these people are like this, it becomes more difficult if it doesn't follow, I think, the tropes of some sort of media that people have some sort of touchstone with.
Yeah, the tropes are important.
No, I agree. And what's funny about that, I remember we had so much fun when we first started playing Top Secret because, first of all, we had a lot of D&D players that were like, okay, we get our characters all geared up. We run to the room. We all kick the door in. Okay, the guy opens up with a Thompson, and you're all dead. You're all dead. Wait, what? No, this isn't D&D. Don't think D&D movie. You need to think about James Bond. And so once you got people into the mindset, okay, this is James Bond. You're going to sneak around. You want to do this. You want to use this, and so yeah, you have to match it to the genre. Once you match it to the genre, everybody's like, oh, okay, I can play that now. And I remember very famously, I ran a Call of Cthulhu campaign years ago, probably the most fun campaign I've ever run in my life of any game. And we had 2 players there. One had never played Call of Cthulhu. One had never played role-playing games ever. And so we're having to roll up a character, and we're explaining the setting and the plot line, this and that. He said, can I just be Indiana Jones? I'm like, okay, yeah, that's your take. Yes, and you actually can. This is the 1920. You could be Indiana Jones. So he played a guy that had a whip and wore a fedora and shot people with his gun. He loved it. I mean, because it made sense. Okay, I'm Indiana Jones fighting all these Cthulhuoid horrors. I don't know what they are, but as long as I don't go crazy, I'll live through this. But yeah, once he had a touch point, which was Indiana Jones, he could deal with the whole thing. And I think that's true. When you have a game, if you don't have those touch points, you're going to have issues. You're going to be like, well, I don't know what to play in this. It could be a great setting. Like I said, Techumil is a great setting. Yes. I mean, it's an absolutely incredible achievement, but it's just really hard to find any kind of touchstones in there because it's such a unique creation.
The only way to really play it is either at convention or if you have a GM that's completely bought in. But for a new group to start with that, it's impenetrable. You have to have somebody that's committed.
Yeah. Well, committed
one thing that's something you talk about, if I could bring up Scoundrels again, that's something this supplement, this setting does pretty good, is that it's got a lot of touch points, for different frames of references without screaming them at you. I mean, this could easily go into a Third Imperium. This could easily go into the Empire and Star Wars. This could go into anyone's homebrew
it kind of thing. On the far reaches of the Federation, even.
Yeah,
In the territory, just kind of lawless, but not quite lawless.
Yeah, you could totally do that. And a lot of that, Jeff and I had to work pretty closely with because he's like, okay, so here's the origins. Here's the first colonists, from who settled the Brixton system, these empty planets. And and how do we, I was like, no, just say they're from here and people will know exactly what that means. And
were they from Earth or not from Earth?
Yeah, it was I didn't want to give it away, but it was like, he's like, should I say they're from Earth? And I'm like, yes, just fucking say they're from Earth, man. It's gonna be fine. Everyone's gonna know. And if
I do from Earth, I'm tying it into something. Or if I just say the homeworld,
they can just. But that's vague too, because then it's like, well, where are they coming from? Where
those are the kind of decisions you try and make. It's
as a writer on the writing side, okay, it's like, well, if they're from Earth, then I don't have to worry about the roots of their words, their names, their surnames, where they come from. Yeah. Why they might sound weird. I can take a Scottish name and a East Indian name, and I can put them together, and we can say it's perfectly plausible that, hey, man, they were colonists on this ship, and it's been 100 years, and they mated, and everyone's intermarrying, and that's why this guy is named what he is. It just keeps it, like you said, key points. I mean, there's little frames of references, and you want to make sure that you can use it. It can be versatile for a GM.
Well, I'm one of those people also that I get always knocked out of I can never pronounce verisimilitude, whatever.
Verisimilitude.
I cannot pronounce it either.
Yes, that's it. And so anyway, I know what it means though, but I get knocked out. I remember reading a fantasy book years ago, and one of the guys during the book yelled "Jesus Christ," and I'm like,
yeah,
okay,
yes, what he actually said.
That doesn't work.
Right. Yes.
That doesn't work at all because this takes place on a different planet. So I always get bothered by that because I'm like, so if these guys are really from a different solar system planet, why are they using colloquialisms that we use in our own world? So that does help by saying yes, they're from Earth, so you can reasonably push forward that anything they're using comes from a historical aspect of the language and what they
that was the thing I had with you talk about like Firefly. Okay, Firefly, it's space western. I get it. It's Traveler. right? But they would say something like, "Well, let's go rustle us up something." I'm like, "Would Russell? What do you go rustling up cow with this? Would someone on the other side of the galaxy use that? Like every time I watch that show and I love it, I get tripped up by the Western accents, the accents of the American West, the drawl, the twang, and the pronunciations.
Well,
it trips me up.
You have to actively do something, and that's suspend disbelief. It's what I'm a retired cop.
You do. Yeah.
I'm a retired cop, and like the first time I watched, I was still working at the time. Oh God, what's the evidence? The one that's all about evidence collecting and all that other shit.
Oh yeah, CSI.
CSI.
One of the CSI.
I watched an episode of CSI
4 of those,
early on in the series, and the first thing I see them do is go to a victim of a sexual assault, and they take the evidence, which may have bodily fluids, put it in plastic envelopes, security envelopes, to seal the envelope. And already I'm going, all right, so in about 2 to 3 hours, that's useless. Because all the evidence is just, you put it in a paper bag. And I'm like, this is Academy stuff that I learned back in 96. And here it is, getting screwed up by a production company. And it's not like these production companies don't have, quote, experts on staff. And I spoke to producers from Law and Order at SVU when they filmed. They were scouting on a location to film a scene, and it wanted to be my local pub. So I'm sitting there, and there's 2 women in their 30s, attractive. The pub never got women during the day, and the ones that you got were always in their 60s. So I was like, I go to my bartender. I go, who are they? I go, oh, they work on Law and Order. I go, really? Yeah. And my bartender was a retired cop, and he's like, you know what? They have questions. He goes, I'm off the job for decades. They should talk to you. I'm like, but they actually ask good questions. They ask questions like, so what are women on your job allowed to wear? What can they color their hair? What kind of jewelry can they wear that's showing with their uniform? I go, do you want by the book or do you want reality? They go, well, give us by the book. And it's like very restricted. Reality. Well, it has to be a natural hair color, but apparently, according to the NYPD, blue streaks are natural hair color if it's worn by a Hispanic woman, because nobody's going to say anything because nobody wants to get a complaint at the supervisor. And they were like, really? I go, I have a friend of mine that she's a Hispanic woman, and she knows it. She'll say, they won't say anything to me because I'm a woman and I'm Hispanic. I was like, interesting. So now those are times when I don't need to suspend my disbelief. But watching movies like, what was it, like Bruce Willis, 19 Blocks, or I was whatever it was.
19,
I'm watching that going, all right, this is an exciting movie, and every 5 to 10 minutes I got to go, stop saying that would never fucking happen and couldn't happen, because stop saying that.
I'll tell you what trips me up. It trips me up is like, and you see it in TV shows a lot, and I understand why. But it's like there's no way you just drove across LA in that much time. There's no way you just got one into LA. You went from here to the Valley in 5 minutes before that. To get no way. No,
even with
what I'm talking about, though, right?
It's not going to happen. Maybe if you have a helicopter.
It's like, okay, we'll be right there, and they get there before this little hour-long movie ends. There's no way you got there and found parking.
Well, how fast do things go to court on TV?
Right, yeah.
They make the arrest within a week. They're already in court.
No. The best one ever is DNA testing. Especially CSI is ruined the whole world for DNA testing, because they grab the DNA, they go in there, they test it, they have it within like an hour. I'm like, man. Dude, not in any city in the United States is that going to happen. No. Sorry, you're gonna be waiting on that DNA. I'm afraid that's just not a thing that's going to happen that quickly. So that always makes me laugh when they do that.
There are jurisdictions that had to dismiss pending sexual assault cases because they were years behind in processing DNA. So
we took a lot of that stuff, man, into consideration. Jeff and I went round and round when making this Scoundrels too, talking about you talk about not wanting to give reference points, but not too much information. You talk about like we had to create a whole economic system and criminal justice system in this solar system, and how how would this actually work? You know, to give it a semblance of realism, so people don't have to suspend their suspend belief. You know, but at the same time, you know, make it so that it's not so dense and Byzantine and with all these with the intricacies of how it does work in reality. You want to just give the enough for the audience to go on and run and enjoy, you know.
No,
It's a challenge. I mean, this is new for me. Like Jeff said,
Fine
this is kind of new for me, as far as being a developer with role playing games. So it's a crash course. It's terrible. I hate you, Jeff. You're making my life miserable, man. No, thank you, man. This is a really good project. I was privileged to work on it.
So when you're in a Kickstarter, you're just looking at the numbers every day, sometimes multiple times a day.
Every day, like every 20 minutes.
Every 20 minutes. So if you get the app, it can make it even worse. So it's definitely it's a long 3 weeks. So
wow. I mean,
I've had a great time on this show, guys. I really appreciate the heck out of you guys inviting me. You guys are pretty cool, man.
well, I mean, listen,
We are very cool. We are cool. I admit that.
We literally treat this show as if we were all sitting at our neighborhood pub talking about shit that we want to talk about. And, you know, no expectations, no judgment, free flowing. Hopefully we don't step on each other too often in the conversation. But if we do, it's because we're drinking. And it's acceptable. You know, but that's why we call it talking crit, because if we called it talking shit, they wouldn't allow it on YouTube, I guess, or at least the title wouldn't be allowed. It would be taken out of the rotation. But we talk a lot of we talk a lot of crit. We talk a lot of stuff, and it's the free flow back and forth is what makes this live stream specifically what it is, the strength of it. I mean, and folks, yeah, all these times you see me like go silent because I'm blowing my nose. I've got bad allergies. It's not the COVID that I had 2 weeks ago. It's now it's allergies. So I'm keeping those sinuses really running. But it's exciting having people that do zines. I'm gonna have to say zines, and I'm gonna get in trouble. So
they're zines.
Yeah,
it's called magazine.
Yeah, I know. So, like I guess in a week and a half, on Friday night, with the random party generator, we're gonna have the master of the $1 zine, Phil Reed.
Oh yes.
Oh, you're gonna have Phil on there. Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, we couldn't get Phil to squeeze in. He's going to be running a Kickstarter. It's going to be a 2-week Kickstarter. We're booked, and he's out of town. So we got Kelsey next week, so we couldn't squeeze him in, but I got him squeezed in on Friday. And now that's going to be interesting because Phil has found a way to price things at $1. And
you know, Phil also has recently left Steve Jackson Games, which you probably won't talk about, but I mean,
well, no, he will.
I'm sure he will.
Well, he didn't fully leave.
He didn't fully leave. He took us 2 steps out, 1 foot back. He left and said, "Oh, but I'm still going to do this, and train my new replacement." And so he's not running out the door. He didn't leave on bad terms.
No, it's very clear he still very much cares about the health of Steve Jackson Games. But this isn't just I'm done. But I think the thing is about Phil is he's developed. You're talking about audience. He has been doing this for so long. He's developed a following, and he is solid in performance, solid in his product, solid in his commitment to doing. And he does a variety of different things at different price points. But he usually keeps the PDFs cheap.
He certainly does. Now, again, Phil was not an overnight success. For anybody who has not been following Phil for as long as I have, you might think, oh, well, when he got to Steve Jackson Games, that's when he started writing material. No. He had like a weekly newsletter. It was a daily, like 25 years ago, right around the turn of the century. You could subscribe to it, and I forget what Phil called it, but he's been writing game material for an audience for years. So when he went to Steve Jackson Games, he was already someone who was building up his own following. and we started doing his Kickstarters. He had people that knew him from decades ago from his material, plus knew him from Steve Jackson games, where he was pretty much an executive. He was fulfilling the role of, I guess, Zach Laser, right? The chief operating officer. He was the coup. So he kept the daily stuff running. So his Kickstarters were not an overnight success. Now, with you guys, your first one is what gets you in the door, and word of mouth is what's going to get you more on the second release and more on the third release. And I suspect, fully that I've already seen it in this one. Like, you can buy Jeff's other releases as part of a bundle on this Kickstarter. So, that to me is great, because I have a pet peeve. I'm not going to mention any specific one, but when people run Kickstarters that are part of a series, and you get to, like, I don't know, part 3 of the series, and you can't pick up part 1 or 2. I don't care if they're a second printing, whatever. If looks interesting, I've only found it now, I want to get all 3 parts.
Right.
When there's no print versions available of those prior 2, now you've put me in a position of going, well, I only buy it in PDF, or I don't buy it at all. Whereas if you can go back and buy print copies of the prior releases, and I can go, oh, I only found this on, I don't know, issue 4, but holy shit, I can get a complete set. Again, even if it's print on demand, even if it's, second prints, whatever. People are completists, and you come in late and not have the opportunity to fill in those missing gaps, which in the position to lose customers. Whereas Jeff offering the ability to, hey, we have Scoundrel, we have prior releases of my zines. I mean, Jeff does some great work, and as Mike says, it's beautiful work, but it's well written, it's well edited, it's put together nicely. My eyes don't bleed because the font is too small. Jeff and I have had that discussion. Yes. But so if you find Jeff stuff now, you can still go back and get prior releases and prior works that he's done. That to me is awesome. That to me is icing on the cake.
Yeah, if you don't see it on the Kickstarter, it will be available in Backer Kit. So all my stuff's always available. Maybe not all of it's on the Kickstarter, because I'm planning on running at least maybe another 3 Kickstarters this year.
Wow.
Good gracious.
We'll see if I can do it. Well, that's the proof's in the pudding.
Well, here now I'm going to say something else, and to me this is obvious. You both have physical copies in your hands. Now I'm assuming those are the author's proofs, but that means this shit is written.
It is written.
It's written. It's laid out. The artwork is there. So, folks, if you're backing this, it's not like you're buying a pig in a poke, or you're gonna put your money down and say a prayer. God bless. Let this actually come to completion. It exists. All right. It's not like you're hoping that, I don't know, Gareth Skarka can come through 11 years later.
Yeah, this is good. Come on, proof of life right here. Right.
So they're ready to order. Also, if anybody goes to the website, I have flip throughs. I have a flip through to it. So you can, if you want to see what it looks like, you do the YouTube video, pause. You can see exactly page to page.
Hardwolf's Lair did another YouTube channel, did a page by page YouTube video. You can see every page. If you want to take a look, and he basically breaks the entire zine down, and what's there, what's on it, what it's used for, you can. It's a great way to preview the project before you buy it.
There'll be no surprises. It is done. This is locked in, ready to order. And also, like you mentioned, I also do things through Lulu. So even if the print runs start to run dry and sales, there will always be physical copies available for people. I will always have physical copies available for every product.
Customer service. That's what I'm talking
to
about.
me, that's always important. I mean, that is huge. And by the way, folks, if you shop for Lulu, always search for a coupon. They may be free shipping. They may be 10% off. Just just search for those coupon codes and like they'll give you like 17. One might work, but try them all. But again, to me, that's always been very important, and it frustrates me when you can't get you find something and get excited about it. It looks good, and you realize, oh, it's the 3rd out of 5, and the first 2 are no longer in print because they did a print run that was exact.
Mm-hmm.
So now you can't go back and fill it off. So I mean, I'm glad to see it. And to be honest with you, Jeff, there are very few people who run Kickstarters that are this complete before they run it. Well, Joe Block, a few others. A lot of people are like 90% complete. Like Joe Block will be honest. It's like, hey, the Kickstarter is funding the art. It's all written. He goes, the more we fund, the more art we get to put into it. But it's already written. Well, that allows you to know as a backer that you're not going to be stuck on somebody's writer block. I mean,
right. I think the only project is Fane of the Fly God. I didn't have proof copies ready at Kickstarter. So, but everything I do, I try and have proof copies available at the time of Kickstarter. So everything's locked in.
Joseph Carter, I haven't looked real closely at the system yet. I'm immediately curious how adaptable the material is for other OSR sorts of rules if you're looking to expand the current game. If you know Traveler and any of its editions, and there are way too many, but I go back to the original Black Book era, but I had the starter set, so it was in a bigger font and larger, But if you can take that and run and take, I don't want to call them adventures because Traveler Adventures were more, and I didn't understand at the time, but they're more like little mini settings with adventure hooks as opposed to here's your adventure. But if you realize that when it comes to stuff that's heavily setting material, that the system is largely irrelevant, except for you to see where things are leaning. Like, oh, this person's highly skilled, this person is low skilled. I without seeing the work that these two gentlemen have done, I can pretty much tell you that I could run this with White Star, which is James Spawn's OSR Star Wars clone. Not saying that it is the same. Is. And I, as an experienced GM, would read the material, but I wouldn't bother converting anything. I would do it on the fly. All right, because I would know exactly how to do it. If you're not comfortable with that, spend half an hour before you run the game. You should be fine. But again, it's just knowing how, like, the thing with Cepheus Engine and Traveler is that, like, character stats are largely irrelevant to a large setting. It's their skills, and skills are self-explanatory. The higher the number, the more skilled they are, whatever that skill thing's looking for. Find a cognate in the OSR system that you're looking at. And I would realize that your players don't need to, they don't know the background of the crunch anyway, so it's really irrelevant.
And I would say for the large part, the NPCs, you can, the GMs can use them for cannon fodder, but they're not necessarily designed to be just killed. They're actually designed to be, either antagonists, protagonists that actually interact with characters. But they do have skills, and those are easy to translate over.
Yeah. So I again, like I said earlier in the show, I have done that with DCC RPG Adventures, converting it to Swords of Wizardry, and did it on the fly. And those systems they're only compatible in the idea that they both have AC, D20s, and everything else is kind of like not matching up. But you go for the flavor. That was always the key to me. As long as the flavor feels right, then who cares what the numbers are? It just has the flavor. It's just got to be the flavor. And Tiny D6 and Index Card RPG, two very good systems. I really enjoy Tiny D6 is the system that I love to run, and I don't think my group would ever play it. Just because they're OSR guys, I just don't know if I could ever get them to do it. Just me. But holy crap, we did a lot of talking, and we haven't even trashed WotC.
Oh yes,
we may have to just skip the WotC bash this week.
No,
okay, we can bash.
We gotta, here. Listen, let's just do a vote amongst the four of us. Which
no, I'm not saying I want to bash them. I mean,
no. Which the Pinkerton story is already a week old, so we don't have to talk about that. So we have a choice. We have the one that WotC may or may not be directly involved with, which was scratching, actually not cropping, photoshopping Jeff Easley's signature off the poster for the D&D movie that was given away to fans because apparently it isn't a selling point. Or we could talk about WotC basically buying itself an award for being like the most ethical company.
I like that one because it's more. The other one sounds like some lackey just screwed up and made a mistake. But the paying for being ethical award, that's I think is fun.
Okay, well let's drop into that then. I find that one totally amazing and humorous, and sadly, nothing new.
I didn't realize such things existed. I think I should have known. I live a naive life, but this was new to me. That that there was awards that you would basically buy into.
Well, and again, sadly, it wasn't new to me. Oh God, what was the? I just did I just did a video on it too. Couple of years ago, I think it was FeedSpot. There is, I guess, a content aggregator that puts together top 100 lists of blogs or websites and all that stuff. And I don't know where the gentleman is located. Definitely not in the United States. Having interacted with him, so I get an email. This is back in, I think it was 2017, 2016. I get an email saying that, hey, we're putting together the top 100 RPG blogs and sites, and would you like to be on the list? Subscribe to FeedSpot for $3 a month, and you will be put on the list. So I was like,
that's going.
So then N-World was number 2 on the list. And then I started reaching out to people that were like in the 50s and 60s on the list, that when we had Alexa and you could look at Alexa rankings. When I was ranked at like 500,000, they were ranked at like 15 million or 18 million or not even ranked because lower was better. But I was reaching out to these people. I go, hey, how did you get on this list? They go, oh, I subscribed. Oh, I paid my $3 a month. So I did a post mentioning this. So then the next year, I got an email congratulating me for making the list. And did I want to subscribe? I'm like, no. So people have been offering these ways to get yourself placed on these lists, even in our industry. And think of it this way: if you have a list and you get, I don't know, 10 people to buy in. That's $36 a person, 10 people, $360. And you have 100 lists, or this guy has like hundreds of lists. How much money are you making? Now, if you're living in Indonesia or Malaysia, this money goes real far. You're living well off of people paying to be put on a list. So it doesn't surprise me that companies like Hasbro are paying $1,000 to nominate themselves and $10,000 to be able to use the logo on their website to show that they are ethical. because the OGL debacle shows how ethical they were.
A friend of ours that's a lawyer that probably everybody can guess the identity of. Zach and I were giving him a hard time one day because he wasn't on the list of 500 best lawyers in Texas. And we said, "How do you not get on this list? How many lawyers are in Texas? And so we were giving him a hard time. He said, "Because do you want me to show you the note they sent me asking for $500 to be put on this list? Because that's what it costs to get on the list. It costs $500, and when you pay them $500, you get on the list of 500 best attorneys in Texas." And sure enough, that's a scam. And so all those things. Okay, you're the best 100 litigators and whatever. You're the best 100 engineers in Wyoming. It's all you pay. It's all pay to play. They don't actually choose that. They want your money, and then you get on the list, and there you go. You're ready to roll. So
I think the challenge to you, Eric and Mike, is with Tenkar's Tavern. I think you need to do something similar, but you need to figure out what those awards are. Like we are the whatever. I don't know what it would be. Besides,
if you had a list we'd put together, you wouldn't want to be on.
I think that's what you should do. No, I mean really. Come with the list of, and you have to pay to get that. Then you could probably
you have to pay to get off. That's the whole thing. We put you on.
There you go.
It's like, you want to get off this list? WotC it. Cough it up. I mean, what blows my mind with this is that like Wizards of the Coast / Hasbro has constantly been in the news cycle since the end of 2022.
Yes.
And they can't get out of the news cycle. It's like, wow, we thought that Bud Light had taken our award just being outside. Even Bud wasn't that bad. Come on, because it isn't so consistent. The consistency is amazing. Sending Pinkerton to somebody's house on a Sunday, and whether you believe that this guy should have shared his cards or not, he didn't break. The law. There was no law broken. I saw somebody argue with the cards were stolen. No, they weren't stolen. Nobody went to WotC's warehouse and took the cards and said, "I'm walking out with them."
I'm going to tell you straight up, man. Them Pinkerton guys would still be sitting on my porch. I wouldn't have let them dance in my house. No. What do you want? Bye. Goodbye. Is that a search warrant?
Well, I think the guy did change his story. Because everybody asked that. They said, "How did they get in your house?" Well, he did let them in, and he did let them because what happened was he actually called WotC and they said, "Yeah, they're here to get the cards." Well, what are you talking about? Like, "Oh, we're going to send you some new cards. You just got the wrong cards, dude." So apparently, he did change his story to where they didn't, kick the door in and send.
I know they didn't do that, but still,
they intimidated their way.
Of course they did, but that's what law enforcement does. You tell them you say you lock the door and say, "Where's your warrant?"
They're not law enforcement. They're not law enforcement.
Well, no, they're private anyway. So yeah, why? Yeah, he only let them in because they scared him enough to where he let him in. But he did let him in. You don't let him in. You learn that. I mean, Eric and I know that. I mean, people know that.
You're going to be standing on that porch.
If you watch TV, you don't ask for a warrant. You ask anybody for a warrant. I mean, come on.
I mean, and not for nothing. All right, deny. I must have been, I don't know. I was like 18. I did a bagel run for my family, so I'm coming back from the bakery.
Story. Here we go.
Yeah, from the bakery, and I get to my walking up my stoop, and there's a gentleman standing on my stoop, and he's got a windbreaker on and one of those, you make those buttons like I love Jesus or whatever. It says HBO security on this round button. That somebody could have made that
HBO security. Oh my god!
I know the security. Yes, keep going. And he goes, "Do you live here?" I go, "Yeah." "Are you the homeowner?" I'm like, "Fucking 18. If I was owning this home, God bless me." But I'm like, "No." He goes, "Well, who is?" I go, "Not me. I wasn't going to name anybody." So he hands me an envelope, and apparently in the envelope was "You've been served by HBO," because my father had a privately owned microwave antenna on the roof in New York City back before Queens had cable. If you wanted to get HBO, you needed a microwave antenna. So we weren't paying for, HBO, the fights, Fraggle Rock, that fun stuff. And so the solution as my father, and how they found out? There was a helicopter that must have done a survey. So my father's solution was, all right, we'll just take the antenna down. You're supposed to take the antenna down, deliver it to HBO. I was like, my father's like, fuck that. He put it in the attic next to the attic window, and it worked almost as well as it did on the roof. But again, this guy probably would have enjoyed coming into the house. Where's the antenna? If I could walk off with the antenna, I'd probably get a bonus. There's no way this asshole should have gotten into anybody's house under any circumstance. Oh, well, watch. He says, you can stay on my front porch. If I'm going to give you anything, you're going to get it on my front porch.
Well,
I'm sure it's you.
Yeah, I'm sure these guys that are hired they probably look impressive. I don't know. I haven't seen any pictures of these Pinkertons, but I'm sure those people that go to the house are very serious looking, no nonsense kind of people. If you're a young person, you're probably going, I don't know who this person is that got.
Anybody's going to be intimidated.
No, yeah, but I mean, yeah. So
anybody really.
But I mean, who the people was that had the cards? I mean, if you're young, you're going to be more susceptible to
these
very official looking guys who look like they're just ex-Marines. Making.
Well, I mean, it also seemed to be he knew he did something a little. Yeah. I mean, I got these early, and maybe he thought that was illegal, which is not illegal if somebody hands you the cards and you bought them. So it's like he thought, well, I'm getting away with something. Maybe I did do something wrong. He wasn't, obviously he's young and he's not clear on what was going on. And old people like us, we're like, no, fuck off, get out of here. We're not letting you in our house. By the way, I'm in Texas. Here's a castle. I'm going to shoot you. Get off my front porch. I mean, that's what it boils down to when you get older. You don't.
The Dungeon Delver YouTube channel, I believe that was the right channel. So forgive me. He pointed out, he did a little research, and apparently, like the head of internal security for WotC and like another security bigwig at Hasbro are former Pinkertons. So
they're just spreading the love around. Yeah, they're giving their buddies.
Listen, when you used to work for the Pinkertons,
right?
You have something to get done. You call up, hey, Billy Joe. Listen, you have anybody out there in what this was like Nebraska? Who do you have out by Nebraska that could do a little research? We got some cards that need to be reclaimed.
We got some strong arm stuff that needs to
go down. We need a little. We need a little. Somebody who could do some persuasion work. I mean, it's not a wise. Everybody's already looking at WotC right now. Everybody's looking at Hasbro. They're already in our focus. Maybe if we weren't looking at them, this shit would have just kind of gone under the radar. Nobody would have paid attention. But when Wizards is already on like our daily sheet of shit, you can't hide this stuff. And the Pinkertons of any company, it wasn't
bad.
like
it's bad. Yeah. It's a bad look. Let's just put it plainly. It's really bad.
Oh, he's not that young.
Well, he's all right. So you know what?
Isn't that the problem though with everything they're doing lately? It's like it's nothing. It's nothing just horrible, but it's just all these horrible decisions. It's just one. It's like nobody's paying attention to what's going on. And I can imagine some guy up there in upper management is watching all these middle managers making just terrible decisions.
Yes, exactly.
Just because I mean, I've been a boss before, and sometimes you do everything right, you think you do, and the person under you just does something. You just slap your head like, what are you talking about? Oh well. Didn't you say to do this once? No, I never said that. What do you, and so that's all I can think is that somebody in upper management is just like sitting around like this going, oh my God, what is it this week? What did you do this week? I mean, you took Easley's name off. Why? Well, because don't we have a policy that no, we don't. We don't have anything. No, we don't. Matter of fact, we're supposed to leave the name on there. It just seems like the communication's horrible there. Horrible at WotC. They just can't get their shit together. I mean, like I said, it's no death blow, but it's like the death of 1,000 cuts. Like
that's a great way to put it. Yeah, it's that they're always in the news constantly, and like you were saying, man, it's when you're already in the spotlight. You're already still back in the minds of a lot of people. It's not a good look to just do something else. It's like how many times can you step on your dick? In a short span of time, and they're just some corporations just invent new ways to go about doing it, You know,
So, Wizards is looking for a director of strategic response communications. What we are seeking a dynamic, creative communicator with deep understanding of gamer communities and a track record of crafting compelling stories. In other words,
totally suited for this. I could apply for this.
Yep, to lead our strategic and rapid response communication efforts.
Erase this now. I'm going to apply for how much. Get to the.
It's good money.
How much does it pay?
Oh, dude, it 149, 150 to 250 approximately.
Jeff, I quit.
It's been nice.
I can't do any more zines.
But put a good word for me and for WotC though. Maybe I'll pick up some scoundrels.
Yeah, right. Oh boy.
So I mean, I'm just
once again, the Kickstarter is up on Kickstarter, and it is
we're in the last week.
It's very affordable, very affordable. It's already funded, so you're getting your product. I mean, you get it there.
The proof copies are already done. It's not you gotta wait for anybody to do layout. This stuff is ready to go. The link is on the bottom of the screen, but if you go to Kickstarter, you can just do a search for Scoundrels of Brixton. You'll find that it comes that by the way, that's how I found it. I did the search. But you know, I feel the scroll on the bottom should annoy you enough that you can't forget it and to log out. You'll be like, I've been watching that thing for the last 2 hours. I can't believe it. But yeah, Jeff, Adam, I mean, this was really a lot of fun.
Yeah, guys,
great to see you guys. This is fun.
It's really nice meeting you, man.
Oh,
I mean, and like herding cats, we were off topic yet on topic most of the time.
It's the best way to
That's
do it.
how
We
we
just
roll.
kept circling
That's how we always roll. Mm-hmm.
No, you guys did great. It was. I really appreciate you letting us talk about the project and trash WotC a little bit and all that good stuff, man. Yeah.
Well, I mean, WotC trashes themselves. We just remind people about their self-inflicted wounds. I mean,
it's low-hanging fruit. You can't stop picking either.
Yeah. So
cool, guys.
All right. Well,
all right.
Huge thanks to Jeff and Adam. Mike, do we have an update on North Texas? Is it sold out yet?
We're up to 450 tickets. We only have 50 tickets available, and we have a month to go. So if you were thinking about going, you better get your tickets soon. We are going to sell out, and at that point, if you walk up, we'll have to decide, is there any games? We don't want you to pay if there's nothing. I had a guy today goes, well, I'm just going to walk up. I said, well, there are not many games. He goes, well, I'll just walk up and pay and walk around. Like, okay, if you want to do that, I guess we'll take the free money, but I want you to be able to play games.
You have to give us retail room badges. It's like, hey, you can go to the retailers and spend money.
So speaking of our guest next week, Kelsey Dion, who's created Shadow Dark, I finally talked to her about this week. I said, Kelsey, you don't have any games in. You're the only special guest that has no games in. And so she apologized, and she scheduled a game for Friday night and Saturday night. So there is 2 Shadow Dark games now on the schedule by the creator of Shadow Dark. It's one of her classic beginning dungeons, and she will be there, and she's excited about coming. And we talked about it. The hotel's sold out, so she can't stay at the hotel because she waited too long to make her reservations. But she'll be staying across the street, and so we talked. Yeah, Kelsey she's awesome. She is very nice, and I enjoy talking to her. I cannot wait for next week. I'm really excited to talk to her. Eric, our show may be 3 hours next week because I got so many questions to ask her.
Well, and I think to me, she's a sign.
So we next week.
She's a sign that things are going well. You know what I mean? Like a young person who is like taking the torch, taking stuff in a direction, is successful. I mean, like, what more could we ask for than to see?
Now, first of all, Jeff, when you say young person, I must remind you she's in her 30s. So yes, that is young to me. I'm 60. To me, that is young. I'm like, oh, she's young. So I just I won't give her the impression she's an 18-year-old. She is in her 30s.
Oh, right. But it's I'm 55 too. So to me, it's
Oh well, yeah, that's young. That's young for you too. Yeah, that's young.
Yeah. So, but for me, it's like this is exciting to see her success. Like. This is
I think
for the OSR, especially, even though some people say, well, it's not really OSR. For the OSR, this is huge. To sign that somebody of a younger group is actually going in this direction, even if it isn't the exact same flavor as,
Well, it's so funny too to look at her Facebook page and I'm on her Discord Facebook page, and some of the people that roll in just make me laugh because they're so funny. Because there was a guy in there, and so a lot of her game is, hey, I want to make this a harder version of 5e. It's more grim and gritty and grim dark type stuff. There's no dark vision. You have to worry about your light sources. And so somebody goes in there and goes, I really like Shadow Dark, but I don't like all this emphasis on light sources and making the game harder and not as many hit points and no dark vision. Like,
you just make it 5e.
Okay, it's called 5e. It already exists. So it's funny that she gets people like, there are people like that in there that, like, I don't grok this. I don't understand it. But most people do. Most people are like, hey, this is cool. I'm playing 5e. It's a little tougher.
Well, she needs to do an expansion for those people that want all that back in.
Yeah, and call it something. I don't know. Call it 5e. Just
Shadow.
The original
Shadow less dark.
Shadow normal.
Yeah.
Yes. I'll have to ask her about that because she knows what I'm talking. Because I actually replied to the guy in the thread and she was laughing. She did a laugh emoji because I said, "It sounds like you're not understanding the buy-in to this game." The buy-in is that you want all these things to make the game different, and when you get rid of them, you have regular 5e. So yes, it is cool to see people getting. I tell the story to Eric a million times, and everybody on our show has heard it a million times. But we had a guy a few years ago that came to our con and he's a kid. He's in his early 20s. And I said, what games do you play here? He said, well, I'm in a 5e, and then I'm in a 5e, and then I'm in a 1e. And I said, oh, well, that's kind of interesting. Like, so what made you, so I guess you grew up on 5e. What made you decide to play 1e? He goes, well, I wanted to play the game on the hard level because I'm used to playing 5e and I've heard it's too easy. So I wanted to see what 1e's like because everybody says that's the hard version of D&D. I said, all right, I said, that is cool that you're trying that because a lot of kids your age you just stick with this. Okay, I'm playing 5e, I like it, whatever. And this kid I want to see how they used to play back in the day. I hear you die a lot and I hear this bad things happen to you because God knows it's almost impossible to get killed in 5e. But so I thought that's cool. A lot of young people are embracing that. Like, hey, yeah, I do want to try something a little tougher. And I want the training wheels off my game. So,
well, I think we're all, remember a time where we thought video games killed role-playing games, but then the kids who grew up with video games, they still love their video games, but then they're like, but they want the experience of a face-to-face game. So the same thing with I think a lot of this movement is 5e brought people in, but people are also willing to try other things. It's been a good thing all around.
But my grandson he's 19. He loves old school computer games, and recently he just completed a run through of all the Fallout games, Fallout 1, 2, 3, 4, and 4. And I said, "Why are you playing Fallout 1? That sucks." He's like, "No, Papa, I want to see the development of the game, how it developed." I was like, "That's pretty cool."
Yeah.
I mean, he did want to see how things got to, because he started out with all of his Fallout 4, but then he thought, well, I want to see what Fallout 1, 2, and the other ones were. And he loves Red Baron, which is it's an ancient computer game, mid 80s, early, I don't know, I think late 80s.
Oh, you're talking about the simulator, biplane simulator?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, I played that.
He loves games like that because he always tells me he likes to see how video games developed and how they became from here to here. And I just think that's a cool thing for kids to do because sometimes you don't realize how good you have it. You see how we used to have it and the games we used to play and what crap they were compared to the stuff now. And you're like, oh yeah, this is so much better now. Gee, VR is awesome.
Yeah, back in the day, I was playing an F-16 simulator, and I was flying there's the sky and there's the ocean, and my wife was confused which was which, and then she started getting disoriented, like
just kind of blends together.
You upside down or you're not upside down? You're upside down. Oh my goodness, vertigo.
Yeah, I think the only simulator I played back in the old Commodore 64 days was the F-22 simulator. Stealth fighter before anybody knew what it actually did. So it was just a game made up. It's like, based on some unreleased specs, we're going to release the F-22 simulator. But no, again, we can't even end the fucking show, folks. Just so you don't know out there. We're trying to wrap this up. We're gonna get.
Also appreciate
we'll get it.
having us on, but I also not only appreciate you guys, but all the people who've been tuning in and posting their comments and whatnot. I appreciate it. It's been fun to look at.
Yeah, and somebody asked if there's going to be product. I think at North Texas, I may send some stuff to Luau Lou. I think
Okay, cool.
I might do that. And I really want to get there next year. I was going to go there last year to North Texas, but I was in Belfast, unfortunately.
I remember that.
Yeah.
The
Name
trip to
drop,
Ireland
name dropper.
never
Okay.
ended.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I plan to be there next year, so I'm really looking forward to
Great.
to
Well,
do
we'd
that.
love
I've
to
never
have
been
you.
there.
It's awesome.
Very cool.
It's fun. You have a
I-
great time.
Only year I missed was the year of COVID, and not because of COVID, just because I couldn't have gotten back to New York State because they wouldn't have let me back in back then because that's New York State. Like, no,
I offered you could have stayed at the hotel all year, but you didn't want to do that. You didn't want to stay.
Yeah, no.
Oh wait, I think I offered you that. Never mind, I didn't offer you that.
No, you offered me the warehouse.
Yeah,
That's
the
the
warehouse.
hotel.
You could have said the warehouse. Just no shower. Everything but a shower is there. You have a microwave. You have the internet. You have a bathroom. I mean, come on.
I think I'm sold. How much is
There
rent?
you go.
There's a refrigerator. There's a refrigerator out there. There used to be a beer keg. Well, actually, there is a beer keg. The beer in there is about 3 years old, so it's probably not good anymore. But
Oh,
we
yeah,
have
no.
a keg machine out there. That
And
we
plenty
need
of
to-
reading
we need
material.
to change it out.
Yeah,
Tons of reading material. Yes.
mostly Judges Guild, but yes, tons
Much
of
as
reading
Judges
material.
Guild. Yes. A lot of stuff, though.
Oh God! All right, folks. Next live stream will be Friday. I believe it's myself and Glenn. If I haven't screwed up the schedule, I might have.
You're right.
Saturday,
No, you're right.
Neighbors Health with Rach and myself. I do not know if we can have a special guest. We'll be dragging Mike on it at some point. But
oh yeah, I got some cool stuff. I got some stuff to share actually about my health.
yeah, so
Good stuff. No, not
Okay.
bad stuff. Good stuff.
but that so and again, other than that, next week, we got Kelsey, and and as a side note, for the one or two loud voices on Facebook that bitch and complain about certain news topics like WotC that come up because somebody's trying to play the clicks for money. I literally, if it wasn't for generosity of somebody like just tossing money at us when Luke was on last week, I would be averaging about $2.
Oh my God!
20
Yeah, I
cents
forgot
a
about
day for my YouTube
Mhm.
ads, which goes right back to my co-host anyway. So I don't do it for the clicks. I do it because I enjoy doing videos. I enjoy speaking with you all. So if I do it for the clicks, then that's when Mike and I retire. And I'm already retired from my real job.
Or I start taking my clothes off on screen.
Oh, there
because
you
that's-
go.
All right, we are not only fans. We are not only fans. Please, Mike.
Oh,
I've already.
come on now.
I have
give it a
seen
shot.
James Spun topless at North Texas.
Yeah.
I do not need to
Oh
repeat
yeah,
that.
it's not no.
That's already
no.
burned into my retinas. Probably burned
I'm
into
gonna
Frank
agree with
Metzger's
you.
retinas too. But
Yeah.
that's besides the point.
Yeah.
Folks, as always, be safe, be well. God bless. Roll those dice, roll them well.
Thanks.
I'll be back tomorrow. Oh, and tomorrow is to hang out in the Discord. We missed the last two for various reasons. Yes, Scoundrels of Brixton. Folks, you can't miss the link. It's on the bottom of the screen. Back because you won't regret it. And actually, there are bundles you can get other stuff from Jeff. I'd advise you do. Mike would advise the same thing, but you don't have to believe Mike. You can believe me. All right. We're out.
Great stuff.
Later.